I've never been the same since that night. 5 years ago, I was driving my taxi, like any other night. I was 35, tired, but it was just a job. I sat in the cab, waiting by a bar. The rain started to pour. Cars splashed through puddles, and I felt a little hazy. I thought about going home, but then I saw her. She was waving from under a streetlight, her clothes soaked. I opened the door, and she hurried in, shivering. "Could you take me to Silver Pines?" she asked. I hesitated. That place was way out of the city, secluded. "Sure," I replied. As I pulled away, I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. She didn't look okay. "Can you take the back road?" she said, voice shaky. I felt a chill run through me. "It's faster," she added. I nodded, though unease warmed my insides. I turned off the main road. The headlights barely cut through the darkness. Trees loomed on either side, and I could hardly see. Something felt off. "Are you okay?" I asked. She didn't answer at first. "I don't know," she finally said. "Please hurry." I pressed my foot down, wanting to get her there quickly. I could feel her eyes glued to the scenery outside. When I finally arrived, she jumped out without a word, disappearing into the shadows. I watched her go, feeling a tight knot in my stomach. I should have said something, but I drove away, eager to shake off that feeling. The next day, I woke up to the news. Her body was found near Silver Pines. I couldn't breathe. I replayed our ride in my mind, thinking maybe I could have helped her. I thought about it all day. A few days later, my phone rang. I picked it up, thinking it might be a passenger, but instead I heard her voice. "Help me," she whispered. I was frozen. I thought I was imagining things. I hung up, shaking. I checked the call log. Her number was blocked. I didn't even remember doing that. I started feeling jumpy. Every time I got a passenger, I would look in the rearview mirror, expecting to see her. The whispers began too. I'd hear her voice behind me, but when I turned, the backseat was empty. One night, I parked on that same road where I dropped her off. My hands shook as I stared into the dark woods. I didn't want to be there, but I needed answers. I turned off the engine, my heart pounding. Then I heard it again, the whisper. It came from the backseat. I snapped around. "Who are you?" I shouted. The shadows loomed, but there was no one there. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I was alone, but I could still hear her voice. My legs felt weak. I wasn't sure what to do next. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't. The taxi sat in silence, and so did I, searching for answers I knew I wouldn't find. All I had were questions, and the darkness seemed to tighten around me, but the answers remained just out of reach. I spent the next few days trying to think of anything else but the girl. My taxi became my prison, every ride a reminder of her scream that I never heard.
I was hollow, drifting through life, but I had to keep working. Bills didn't care about my nightmares. One evening, I picked up a passenger from the airport. He was a businessman, gray suit, tight grip on a briefcase. I gave him a nod and opened the door. He climbed in, barely acknowledging me. "Where to?" I asked, stealing glances in the mirror. "Downtown," he replied, tapping away on his phone like I was invisible. I drove through the city streets, but my mind was elsewhere, lost in dark thoughts. If only I had done something different that night. If only I had saved her. Then the whisper came again. "Help me." My heart skipped a beat, and I nearly swerved off the road. The man in the back seat glanced up, annoyed. "Watch the road," he barked. I gripped the wheel tighter. "Yeah, sorry," I mumbled. I had to shake this. It wasn't real. I focused on the traffic lights ahead, but my heart was racing. We hit a red light, and I took a deep breath to steady myself. That's when I saw it, a reflection in the rearview mirror. It wasn't the businessman. It was her, the girl from 5 years ago, her gaze locked onto mine, pleading. "Please," she mouthed without sound. I felt icy fingers crawl over my spine. "Who are you?" I gasped. My voice cracked. The businessman turned to stare at me like I'd lost my mind. "Just drive," he said, annoyance clear in his voice. But I couldn't. I was frozen, eyes wide in panic, and the traffic light turned green. "Are you okay?" the businessman asked, a hint of concern creeping into his tone. I couldn't manage a reply. All I could see was her, the girl I failed. The light turned red again, and I finally blinked. She was gone. I was still gripping the wheel, breathing hard. I glanced back. The businessman looked concerned but annoyed. "Just drive, will you? I have a meeting to get to." "Right, sorry." I put the pedal down and tried to push the fear aside. I made it downtown and dropped him off, but the chill in my gut didn't leave. On my way home, I decided to take a different route, wanting to avoid the place that haunted me. As I turned on a side street, my phone vibrated. I pulled it out. Another call from her blocked number. My heart raced again, but I hesitated. What if it was her again? My thumb hovered over the screen. I finally pressed answer. Nothing, just silence. Then the whisper returned. Help me. I slammed the brakes, a sudden decision made. I wouldn't ignore this. I had to find out what she wanted. There was something deeper here, a reason behind all this. I could feel it, growing stronger. I'd go back to Silver Pines. I had to. But as I turned around, a figure stepped into the road. I slammed on my brakes. Then everything went dark. When I came to, I wasn't sure how much time had passed. The air was thick with confusion, and the darkness pressed against me like a weight. I blinked a few times, trying to clear my head. My heart raced as I remembered the figure. Had I hit someone?
I looked around the cab, panicked. The engine was still running, the headlights illuminating the empty street. No sign of a body. I opened the door and stepped out, cautiously scanning the area. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No response. I flipped on my phone's flashlight, the beam slicing through the shadows. Still nothing. I stepped out of the cab, feeling disoriented. The street was eerily quiet. Even the usual sounds of the city seemed muted. Then I saw it, a shadow darting into an alleyway just ahead. My breath caught in my throat. My instinct was to run, but my legs felt heavy. "Wait!" I shouted, knowing it could be a trick of my mind, but the fear driving me forward was stronger than the hesitation. I paced toward the alley, the air feeling colder, biting at my skin. As I approached, I could hear soft whimpers. It sounded like a child. I hesitated, the swirl of emotions almost making me turn back. But I had to know. I had to see. I peered into the darkness of the alley. The light from my phone didn't reach very far, but I could make out a figure on the ground. My heart raced. I stepped inside, the beam of light illuminating a little girl, no older than 7. Her messy hair and tear-streaked face made my gut twist. "Are you okay?" I asked softly, kneeling down. She looked up, her eyes wide and filled with fear. "They're coming," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Help me." My heart sank. The same words. I froze for a moment, feeling the weight of the past crash over me. I wanted to save her. I had to. "Who's coming?" I asked, scanning the area. "Please," she sobbed. "They're coming for me." Instinct kicked in. I reached out to her. "You need to come with me. I won't let anyone hurt you." I took her hand, and as soon as I touched her, a rush of cold air swept through the alley. I shivered, the hairs on my arms standing up. The girl didn't move. She was looking behind me, eyes wide with terror. "No, don't let them get me." I turned around, and my heart plummeted. I saw dark figures approaching, moving slowly from the shadows. My pulse quickened. I didn't know what these figures were, but the girl's fear was infectious. I tugged her arm, ready to pull her out of there, when the whisper returned. "Help me!" It echoed in my mind, drowning out everything else, filling me with dread. I had been pulled back into a nightmare I thought I had left behind. "What do you want from me?" I shouted at the figures, anger boiling up inside me. They stopped, the glow of my phone flickering. For a moment, everything was still. Then, as if in response to my question, one shape stepped forward, its face concealed in darkness. "I want what's yours," it said in a voice that sent chills racing down my spine. Before I could react, the girl screamed. Then everything went dark again. I gasped as I woke up again, the gold, damp ground beneath me. My heart raced, pounding in my ears like thunder. Wrapped in shadows, I fumbled on the ground and grabbed my phone. The screen lit up, pointing the way back to my terror. "Where are you?" I whispered, my voice hoarse. Panic clawed at my throat. I was still in the alley, but there was no sign of the girl. "Help me!" The words floated through the darkness, a haunting echo. My pulse quickened again. "Are you here?" I called out, but there was only silence. I shone my light around, fear gripping my chest. I had to find her. Then I saw it, a flicker of movement. I pivoted, heart pounding. The shadow was gone, but the alley felt alive, pulsating with a strange energy. My stomach churned. I swallowed hard and pushed deeper into the alley. "Hello?" No response. The air smelled damp, musty, like forgotten things. That's when I noticed something on the ground. I stepped closer, squinting. Small, dirty footprints led off into the darkness. They were fresh, as if the little girl had just run through. I followed,
my mind racing. "Where are you?" I pressed on, dread settling in my bones. The shadows loomed larger now, curling around me. I tried to shake the feeling off, but it clung to me like a shroud. Then I heard it, a soft thud, followed by a low growl. My heart sank, and my breath quickened. What was coming? I backed up, uncertainty flooding over me. "Is someone there?" I shouted, trying to maintain a brave front. But the growl came again, closer this time, echoing down the alley. My instincts screamed for me to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. Suddenly, the darkness shifted, revealing a figure standing at the mouth of the alley. I squinted, trying to make out who it was. "It's him," a voice whispered, one that seemed to rise from the shadows. It was the girl's voice, but distant. "You have to go." "Go where?" I shouted back, but there was no time for an answer. The figure advanced, and with it came a chilling wave of cold. I turned, frantically looking for an escape. My fingers brushed against the wall as I pushed myself toward the light of the street, but the alley was closing in, the darkness thickening like fog, swallowing my hope. "Get away from her!" I screamed, spinning back around. The words felt powerless against the encroaching form, and I stumbled back, feeling trapped. Then I stumbled upon something, a piece of paper crumpled under my foot. I picked it up, the words barely visible in the dim light. "It won't let you go." Panic surged inside me, but there was no choice now. I had to confront whatever was lurking behind me. I steeled myself, turning to face the figure, my heart racing in defiance. As I did, it lunged forward, and everything went black again. I woke up again, but this time it was different. My vision swam as I blinked against the dim light. I was no longer in the alley. I sat in a crammed backseat of a taxi, the scent of cigarette smoke lingering in the air. Confused, I glanced around. The driver was silent, his eyes hidden beneath the baseball cap.
"Where am I?" I croaked, panic rising inside me. The driver turned his head slightly, his eyes narrowing in the rearview mirror. "You don't remember?" he rasped. His voice was low, almost taunting. I shook my head, trying to piece together what had happened. The alley, the girl, the growl. This felt like slipping through the cracks of my mind. What happened? He shrugged, but his lips curled into a faint smirk. "Just another ride, I guess. But looks like you got lost along the way." I felt a chill creep down my spine. The memories came rushing back. The girl's voice, the looming figure, the darkness. "I need to get out of here. I need to find her." "Can't do that." His eyes drilled into mine. "You'll regret it." Suddenly, the taxi jolted to a stop. I blinked, disoriented. A street light flickered outside, illuminating a sign for an abandoned building. I glanced out the window. The area felt wrong, as if it was holding its breath. "Get out," the driver ordered. I hesitated, heart racing. "What about my things?" "Don't need anything here," he replied, his voice flat. I forced myself to open the door. The air was thick with unease. As I stepped outside, the driver laughed, a cruel sound that faded as I turned away. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of a nightmare. I looked around, remembering how I had followed those tiny footprints in the alley. I took a deep breath and started walking toward the building, my instinct screaming at me to turn back. But I had to find her. I had to find out what all of this meant. Once I reached the entrance, a sense of foreboding washed over me. The door was slightly ajar, creaking as I pushed it open. Inside, darkness enveloped me, illuminated only by beams of moonlight filtering through cracked windows. Dust danced in the air. "Hello," I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. That's when I heard it, a soft whimper, echoing through the empty space. My heart sank. Is someone there? I stepped further in, dread coiling in my stomach. "Help me," the voice pleaded. It was faint, but unmistakably the girl's. I rushed toward the sound, stumbling over debris on the floor. "Where are you?" I shouted, desperation creeping in. But in the pit of my stomach, I felt something shift. A shadow moved in the corner of the room, and I froze. Then I saw it, a glimpse of pale fingers reaching out from the darkness. Terror ignited inside me as I realized I had to make a choice. I could keep going toward the voice, or run back into the night and hope I hadn't made a terrible mistake. Before I could decide, the shadow lunged, and everything went dark again. But this time,
I could hear her scream. I woke up again, but this time I was on the ground. Cold concrete pressed against my back. I blinked, trying to gather my thoughts, but my head was spinning. The darkness around me felt heavy, suffocating. "Where am I?" I muttered, forcing myself to sit up.
The soaked fabric of my clothes clung to my skin, a reminder of vulnerability. I squinted, but all I could see was shadow. "Down here," the girl's voice called out again, clearer this time, but still muffled. I shot to my feet. "Where are you?" Her whimper came from my right, and I turned, stumbling over something hard. My breath quickened as I felt along the ground, fearing what I might find. "Hold on, I'm coming!" I cried, trying to project confidence that I didn't feel. Groping blindly, I finally found something, her hand. It was cold and trembling. I wrapped my fingers around hers, relief flooding through me. "I'm here. I won't leave you." "Don't let it get us," she whispered. Fear laced her voice. "What? What is it?" I pressed, but there was no answer. I stepped backward, trying to gather my bearings. The sense of something lurking, waiting in the dark, was overwhelming. Suddenly, a sharp growl echoed around me, echoing like thunder in the void. The hairs on my arms stood on end. What was that? "I don't know. It follows me," she whimpered. The tight grip of her hand caused my heart to race even faster. I had to protect her. I had to fight whatever this was. "Stay close," I said, my voice trembling. We needed to find a way out. I pulled her hand with me, feeling my way through the thick darkness with every step. "Wait, there's a door," she called, pulling my attention to a faint outline ahead. We hurried toward it, the growl growing louder, more menacing. It was closing in on us. I reached out, feeling the doorknob. A twist, a push. The door creaked open. The tiny bit of light spilling in felt like salvation. We stepped through, but no sooner had I crossed the threshold than I felt something brush past me, a cold breath against my neck. "Run!" I shouted, pushing her forward. We dashed down a narrow corridor. The growl echoed behind us, almost like it was laughing. "Where are we?" she cried as we made our way over broken crates and debris. "I don't know. Just keep moving." Panic swirled in my stomach. But the more we ran, the more I realized the place felt alive, the shadows shifting around us. Then, just when I thought we'd escaped, we stumbled into a large room filled with flickering lights. A low hum buzzed through the air, and I squinted to see what lay ahead. The shadows danced like specters, and in the center stood a figure. It was tall and dark, a cloak swirling around it like smoke. My heart dropped. The girl tugged on my sleeve. "What is that?" I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came. The figure stepped forward, and everything went still. I saw its face, twisted and hollow, and fear rooted me to the spot. Then it pointed at me, and I felt the room spin again. "You've come back." Before I could process the words, the lights flickered, and everything went dark again. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me, pressing down like a weight. I could barely hear my own breath. I squeezed the girl's hand tighter, desperate for comfort. And then, just as suddenly, the scene shifted. The flickering lights returned, illuminating the room in jarring bursts. The figure loomed before us, its face still twisted in that grotesque manner that sent chills racing down my spine. "You've come back," the words echoed, wrapping around me like chains. They felt familiar, yet foreign, as if I had heard them in a forgotten dream. "What does that mean?" I whispered, mostly to myself. The girl's grip tightened on my arm. "It knows you. It's here for you." Her voice was shaky, panic bubbling to the surface. I could feel her trembling at my side. "Stay behind me," I urged, taking a step forward. My heart pounded against my ribs, but I couldn't let her see my fear. The figure remained still, its hollow gaze fixed on me. I tried to find words, but nothing came. The shadows around it seemed to pulsate, flowing like smoke in a non-existent breeze. Then, without warning, it lunged. Instinct kicked in, and I shoved the girl backward. "Run!" I shouted again. We darted to our left, racing past shadows that seemed to reach out for us. Behind me, I could hear the disturbance, the growl morphing into a low, growling snarl. It was gaining on us, sharp and urgent. "I think we're in a basement or something," she shouted as we rushed down another corridor. "How did we get here?" "Focus," I yelled, desperate to keep her calm, even as my mind raced. There had to be a way out.
Adrenaline surged through me, making me acutely aware of every scrape and bruise I had sustained. In a flash, we stumbled through another doorway, barreling into what felt like an empty room, but the air was thick with dread. It smelled of dampness and something else, something rotten. My heart sank further. "What if it's a trap?" she murmured, glancing back uneasily. "Then we'll figure it out," I replied, even though I wasn't sure we could. I turned, scanning the room for anything that might help. My pulse quickened as I spotted a staircase leading upward. "This way, maybe we can escape." We sprinted toward the stairs, but a sudden roar ripped through the darkness, stopping us in our tracks. The figure loomed behind us, its form shifting as if part of the shadows themselves. "You cannot escape," it bellowed, and the very air around us seemed to thicken. The girl turned to me, her eyes wide with terror. "What does it want from us?" "I don't know," I shouted back, the words coming out more desperate than I intended. As we backed against the wall, I felt the old concrete beneath my fingers. My mind raced for a plan, but then something reflective caught my eye, a glint peeking through the untidy chaos. I took a step toward it, feeling my breath quicken. That's when I saw it. A tarnished old key lay among the debris. But just as I reached for it, the lights flickered ominously again, and the figure seemed to grow larger, darker.
It echoed a promise, a threat, somewhere between the growl and the growl. "You will never leave." And with that, everything went dark once more. I woke up gasping, my body jolting upright, the oppressive darkness replaced by a faint yellow glow. The girl was gone. Panic surged through me as I spun around, trying to catch my breath. The room was empty, but I could still feel the aura of dread hanging heavy in the air. "Hello?" My voice echoed around the unfamiliar space, but only silence answered. I was alone. Squinting, I noticed the room was cluttered with old furniture and boxes stacked to the ceiling. The key, the tarnished key, was still in my hand. I had it tightly clenched, its cold metal grounding me a bit. But what now? I pushed myself to my feet, scanning the room for any sign of the girl. I had to find her. I couldn't let whatever that thing was separate us again. I dashed toward the only exit, a weathered door at the far end. As I grasped the cold doorknob, a voice echoed in my mind. "You will never leave." The hope I had felt quickly turned into dread. With a deep breath, I wrenched the door open. A narrow hallway stretched out before me, lit by flickering bulbs hanging from chains above. Shadows danced at the edges, and I could feel something lurking just out of sight. "Where are you?" I called out, moving cautiously down the hallway. "Please, say something." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind me. My heart raced as I turned, expecting to see that figure again. Instead, it was just a box that had fallen over, sending old books tumbling to the floor. Relief washed over me, but I couldn't shake the sense of being watched. I moved forward, each step heavy with trepidation. The air smelled stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. As I rounded a corner, I spotted what looked like a window, broken and grime-covered. I rushed toward it, desperation fueling my movements. Outside, I could see a glimpse of the night sky, but the glass was too shattered to climb through. I slammed my fist against the frame in frustration. This wasn't a way out. I was trapped. And then I heard it, a faint whimper, barely audible. The sound seemed to drift through the air, tugging at something deep within me. "Over here," I called, my voice catching on the hope that it might be the girl. I followed the sound, turning down another dim corridor, the flickering lights now putting shadows in front of me. As I ran, I could hear it again, clearer this time, a soft cry. I sprinted towards it, each footfall pounding with purpose. As I approached a doorway, I hesitated, feeling the air shift around me. The cries grew louder, but something else began to surge beneath the noise, a deep, growling rumble that sent chills down my spine. With a heavy clap of dread, I knew that figure was near. I pushed the door open, ready to confront whatever waited inside, but the growl morphed into laughter, a haunting sound that chilled my veins. And there, in the back of the room, was a figure, a shadow that flickered in the dim light. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its intent. That was the moment I realized it wasn't just coming for me, it was coming for her. "Get away from her!" I yelled, my voice shaking as the darkness tightened around me. In that instant, the laughter halted. A tense silence filled the space, and I felt the weight of its gaze boring into me. I had to act fast. Just then, a thought struck me. If I had the key, maybe it wasn't just a key to doors, but a key to understanding. I looked back at the shadow, clenching my fists tightly around the metal. "What do you want?" I demanded, the tremors in my voice almost betraying me.
But before I could contemplate an answer, everything went dark again. My heart pounded in the silence. I felt like I was weightless, suspended in that dark void. But just when I thought I might suffocate in the quiet, the laughter returned, a low, sinister chuckle that slithered around me like smoke. "Where are you?" I shouted into the dark, desperate for a response. "What do you want with her?" Gradually, the darkness began to peel away, revealing the room once more. But something was different. The figure had shifted closer, its outline sharper against the shadows. I held my breath, eyes darting around for a way to escape, but the room felt smaller now, more claustrophobic. Then, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I squinted, trying to make sense of the shapes around me. That's when I saw her. The girl. She lay crumpled on the floor, her figure shivering as if frozen in fear. "Help her!" I instinctively shouted, lunging forward. But as I stepped closer, the shadow drew in, a wall of darkness ready to consume us both. "No!" I cried, feeling helpless. I clutched the key, its cold metal biting into my palm, and I took a step back, bracing myself against the weight closing in. "Leave her," I said, the words escaping my lips only because I was afraid of what would happen if I stayed silent. The flickering lights above responded, the bulbs dimming and brightening in a way that made me feel like the room was breathing. "Leave?" the shadow seemed to mock, the laughter echoing once more. "This is her home. You are the intruder." "Home?" I repeated, stunned. "You don't belong here." In that moment of distraction, I looked back at the girl. She moved slightly, lifting her head just enough for me to glimpse her face. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear and disbelief. And then I saw it, a jagged gash across her wrist, bleeding freely onto the floor. "Please," she whispered, a sound so fragile it nearly shattered me. "Help me." The urgency in her voice ignited something fierce inside me. I turned back to the shadow. It was close enough now that I could see the glinting eyes peering out, like two small, malevolent stars ready to consume any hope I had left. "What do you want?" I shouted again, anger fueling my resolve now.
"Let her go. Or what?" it taunted, a low growl vibrating through the air. "You're powerless here." In a moment of clarity, I raised the key before me like a weapon. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The laughter shifted into a bone-chilling shriek, and I could feel the air crackle with tension. The girl crawled toward me, determination in her eyes, and it gave me strength. We were in this together. As I stood my ground, something shifted in the air, a tension that felt almost tangible. I noticed the walls around us tremble slightly, a sign that whatever held this room together was beginning to fracture. "Then let's see what lies beyond," I said, believing that the key could either be my salvation or the gateway to something darker. Just then, the lights flickered wildly, plunging us into darkness once more. An overwhelming rush of energy surged through the air, forcing every breath from my lungs. And in that darkness, a blinding flash lit the room again. It wasn't the shadow that thrilled me, but a door, an ancient wooden one, now standing where there wasn't one before. I looked at the girl, who nodded, her eyes reflecting the light. This was our chance. With my heart racing, I lunged for the door, reaching for the handle, wondering what waited beyond. The instant my fingers wrapped around the doorknob, a sudden calm enveloped me, as if the chaos of moments before had been swallowed by the door itself. I glanced back at the girl, her wide, fearful gaze urging me on. Swallowing my last shred of doubt, I turned the knob and pushed the door open. Light flooded through, illuminating a vast expanse. We tumbled through together, stumbling onto soft grass under a twilight sky. For one fleeting moment, I reveled in the beauty of the world outside that awful place. The shadows that had haunted us seemed to dissipate, replaced by the gentle glow of evening stars. But my victory felt fragile. I took a deep breath, looking down at the girl still clinging tightly to my hand. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice trembling with concern. She looked up at me, the fear still etched in her features, but there was a flicker of hope, confused yet bright. "I think so," she whispered. "But they'll find us." "No one will hurt you again," I promised, though the weight of those ominous words hung in the air, lingering like the shadows we escaped. I scanned our surroundings for signs of danger, but found none. Instead, there was an old path, lined with trees whose branches swayed gently in the night breeze. "What is this place?" I mused, incredulous, as we began to walk. The earth felt solid beneath my feet, but something nagged at me. Those whispers, the dank air, the looming shadow. Could we truly be free? As we walked, the girl began to relax, her grip on my hand slackening. Just ahead, I spotted a flicker of light, glinting like a beacon in the darkened woods. "Let's see where that goes," I suggested, feeling my heart pick up pace again with the rush of possibility. But as we drew closer, I felt the familiar shiver run down my spine. The glow intensified, revealing a clearing bathed in an ethereal light. At its center stood an imposing figure, a silhouette indistinguishable from the shadows that strained to break the calming light around it. "No," I breathed, instinctively grasping the girl's hand tighter, drawing her behind me. "Not again." The figure shifted, its presence commanding and dark, pulling the shadows closer again, threatening to wrap us in that dread. "You have returned," it intoned, voice smooth yet jagged, filled with mirth and malice alike. "But you cannot outrun your fate." "What do you want?" I shouted back defiantly, pushing down the fear. "Her," it sneered, suddenly drawing closer. "She belongs to me. You merely delay the inevitable." The girl took a step back, trembling. "Stay back," I yelled, positioning myself in front of her. The key still clutched in my palm felt insignificant against the monstrous intent of the creature. "You can't have her." The air hummed around me, heated by the figure's growing rage. "You can do nothing," it hissed, and the shadows thickened, pushing against my resolve. But in that moment, something stirred within me, a memory, a flicker of power I hadn't recognized before. I thought of our shared fear, of the warmth of her tiny grip, of the bond we had forged in the darkness. "You're wrong," I roared, raising the key high. "We will be free." As the words left my lips, the key blazed with light, illuminating the woods and momentarily blinding the figure as its tendrils reeled from the brightness. I could feel the weight of shadows shift, their grasp weakening, as if challenged by the sheer force of hope. I pulled the girl close and dashed over the threshold of the light. Around us, the air crackled and pulsated, each beat resonating with power. For the first time, I felt like the darkness had been pushed back, even if only for a moment. Then, with a thunderous roar, the figure lunged, but as we crossed into the light, it stumbled, its form fracturing like glass. And just like that, we were plunged back into darkness. I opened my eyes again. This time I lay alone on a familiar street, my taxi idling quietly beside me. The rain beat down around me, steady and soothing as I sat up. The disorientation washed over me in waves. But as I looked around, the memories of the struggle lingered. The girl was gone. I breathed, my heart heavy as uncertainty wrapped around me like an old blanket. I could still hear her whisper, feel the cling of her small fingers in the shadows. "What really happened?" I whispered to the rain, wondering if I would ever find out. The echoes of laughter danced in twilight, and just as I started to stand, my phone buzzed in my pocket, the screen lighting up with a blocked number.
"Help me," a faint voice whispered, carrying electricity through me. I froze. I still think about it sometimes. The girl's eyes, the darkness, that laughter. I moved far from the city after that, but sometimes I wonder if I'll hear her voice again. I try not to think about it, but deep down I know some shadows never leave.